is everybody?
Give
It's
it
been
a
a
go.
while since we've done a little guest episode. So
It has.
What was it? Phil was our last one?
I believe so, yes.
That sounds right. I don't know.
Phil
Connors?
It's me, Ned
Ned Ryerson.
Ryerson.
Oh my God. What a classic. If I could, I think we should just like repetitively do that episode periodically and just pretend like we've never done
year.
it.
But never know that we were redoing it.
But yeah, what brings us together today, what do we got? You always ask me that question. I'm trying to ask you that question.
You asking me that question, or are you asking Jordan that question?
I'm asking you.
Me?
You're the one that works here.
I work here? I don't know. I don't work here.
I'm flipping the scales on you. I'm asking you this week.
We have a special guest here today.
Yes, hello.
And we are talking about something I know absolutely nothing about. And that
Don't sell yourself short.
No, I really don't know much about. I love it, but I'm a complete amateur at best when it comes to concept art.
So yeah, well, this is one you and I have kind of like kicked back and forth and said we wanted to do for a while, and like getting into just like the artistry side of pre-production and all that stuff and getting into all that. We mentioned it briefly in that pre-production episode that we did a few weeks back. But I've been thinking about this for a long time, and I know a bunch of people who are very hard, flat form artistry style savvy, Jordan being one of them. And I know one of your like dream goals in life is concept art. And I've seen that you have a penchant for like the daily sketches and stuff, and you're well along your way, in my personal opinion, though I know you'll be too modest to say so, on your way towards becoming that.
It's very kind of you. Yeah, I would definitely disagree, but I appreciate it.
He's modest. But yeah, I think it's a cool topic. It's one that you and I have definitely talked about quite a bit. So I figured this would be a fun riff session just to kind of dive into some of our favorite concept artists. I have a few that I did a little bit of research on here. My prime two, though, I personally would say Sid Mead and Ralph McQuarrie are like the top dudes. The goats, as it were. But yeah, I thought we could just dive in, riff, and talk how it molds into the process, how it can be complicated, and it definitely lends itself to those more long-form pieces of storytelling, like big world-buildy type things.
Yeah, it's the legend of me. I mean, I live in LA. I am a freelance illustrator, animator, designer, kind of jack of all trades.
Excellent.
Which I don't recommend to anyone.
Yeah.
It's a pain in the ass.
But
so I do that.
To your own modesty, you're saying that you're no professional. You're out there actually beating the bushes and doing it. You're doing the work. So.
I mean, it's not full-time right now, but sometimes it is full-time, and that's great, but it's not full-time.
And I've mostly followed you on Instagram over the years intermittently from us actually getting to be face-to-face and hang out. And I've definitely watched your skills improve, and you're getting definitely a more practiced hand with what you're doing. You're learning the methodology and how to do this.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think like any skill set, digital painting or drawing, or it's just about mileage and consistency. So yeah, I draw every day. I don't post every day because I have a very complicated relationship with Instagram and social media in general.
And that's extremely
we all
fair.
do.
Yeah, it seems to get worse and worse now that like the policies around training their AI and using work without real compensation or permissions. So yeah, it's getting worse and worse every day. But
well, that's very interesting because several people we've had on now, we've circled back to the discussion of AI and like how the rise in tech is having a very negative effect on artists. And I find it so interesting that we keep getting back to that point.
And we never do it intentionally. It always just seems to just pop up.
But it's such a prevalent conversation that like it just shows like how important of a topic it is.
100%. I mean, it is affecting the entire industry from writers to visual artists to actors. I mean, recently Scarlett Johansson is suing, I don't know if it was ChatGPT or OpenAI.
It was OpenAI.
Intern. Yeah.
Which they're all merged into the same thing at this point. But
right. Skynet.
Yeah, exactly.
No, but yeah, it's interesting and difficult because there's a lot of uncertainty in the industry, not only fueled by like the AI conversation, but just in general, studios downsizing and outsourcing and profits for the big guys upstairs getting grander and artists living in living spaces.
Yeah. Well, it's too like it raises the big question marks of what does the landscape look like going forward? Because we're kind of going into uncharted territory here. And
Yeah.
I think it's kind of pushing everything towards like an independent creator type situation where we should be a large scale collaborative effort. And it feels like the rooms in which we're all working are getting smaller and smaller, as we're all kind of used to being on a big team collaboration. And it's like, oh no, work by yourself. I'm like, I don't want to work by myself.
Yeah, that's the beauty of filmmaking in general, right? It is a collaborative experience.
Yeah.
You can't just do it by yourself. It's all about the team.
Yeah, it's like everybody brings their skills to the table. Like, for example, I can't draw super well. I have my own personal skills that I thrive off of. I'm trying to get better at everything all the time, but I'm one person. I can only do so much. And you need specialized skill sets brought in from multiple people to make a solid collaboration.
Yeah, I think it's also interesting. I mean, in my experience, my limited experience of like actually being in the industry here and there, it's like people want specificity and expertise. There's a huge benefit from being able to communicate to all the different branches involved, right? Like if you are a more well-rounded wearer of many hats, it's easier to convey a concept to somebody who's working solely in sound or on script or in concept art. To bring it all back around, right? Like it's easier to communicate when some of the terminology you need, or just have an understanding of composition and lighting and blocking. It helps.
Yeah, I mean it's such a broad spectrum of filmmaking. When you take it from that aspect, it's like there's so many different aspects to it. Nobody can know any one thing. You kind of got to just like pick up as much as you can to communicate between, if you want to try and bridge those gaps a little bit. But it's just like it's almost like no one person could ever possibly learn it all.
So
yes, unless that's a challenge.
Take it as a personal challenge.
Maybe, yeah.
So from the aspect of concept art, that, like we said, that kind of goes into the pre-production aspect largely. Sometimes there's aspects of it that come into play where every production is different, so every methodology can be slightly different. Obviously, like more computer-based set work or the volume stage, anything like that. Sometimes there can be a situation where things will come into play as you're building those types of concepts as the production's happening. So obviously there are exceptions to every rule. But for the most part, concept art tends to come into play in the pre-production writing processes to try and give examples to help understand the world that is trying to be built within that particular story. So I think that like going back and looking at some of the history, like there's a wealthy, extensive history of concept artists going through, and like Blade Runner, for example, with Sid Mead, or Lord of the Rings has some pretty extensive concept art, as well as Star Wars, the extensive history of Star Wars. A lot of artists have been scooped up by Lucasfilm over the years. So and also like anytime Han and I have gone to local cons and stuff, and you get to see like a lot of artists show up with their actual prints and stuff, and that's a way for them to get revenue and keep doing what they're doing. So there's interesting ways to actually meet people who do that kind of work that you wouldn't ever come across them in day-to-day life. But there's cool ways to get in there and check people out, and everybody's constantly growing and building their skills. So it's not everybody can be a Sid Mead. You have to climb the ladder different ways. So
certainly. It's actually funny that you sent this, like, I guess it's for the podcast listeners. You sent me this like document, really cool PDF full of pictures of these like famous artists' work. And one of them is this image by McQuarrie of like an early Darth Vader concept.
I do love that print.
It's so funny. I was at a thrift store, I don't know, a couple of months ago, and I found that as a print.
Whoa.
And I immediately popped, I was like, yes, this is mine.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't care how much it was, but it was like $10.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
It's freaking huge. I don't have it on the walls yet because my partner is like, this is too nerdy. But one day I will find space for it.
I have my like little corner in here where it's just like my desk and like all my nerd stuff. So I feel that.
Yeah. It's really cool. Ralph McQuarrie is like a huge inspiration for me. Like I love his work. I love the fact that even today it's being referenced and it's inspiring a lot of the newer Star Wars content.
Yeah.
That you see. Like it's so cool seeing old designs.
Like so it lends certain story ideas a certain gravitas whenever they're like, oh, well, look, this idea was put forward in like one of the original pieces of concept art. I'm like, well, yeah,
totally.
That just makes it so much cooler.
Yeah, it's like definitely fan service to a degree, right?
Yeah.
But like doesn't depreciate how good the designs were initially, even though they didn't go in that direction, you know?
Yeah, like you said, it could be a bit of fan service, but it does shows how good the artistry was for what they were trying to do in the first place.
Yeah, I mean, when I think you're at the tip top of your game, like Ralph McQuarrie, it's like everything you do is so good,
Yeah.
and you can only pick a handful of ideas, right? So it is nice to see it, get new life. There's like newer iterations of Star Wars. That's just specifically Star Wars, but
Yeah, and I think there is a bit of a stigma on concept art as well that I've kind of noticed, where people tend to think it's kind of like an older form art, that from like a lot of people who don't know that it's still so vibrantly with the ease of access to digital artistry. I mean, like if you have an iPad, you can do it. It's interesting that like so many new artists are popping up. Like I was looking through the previs booklet for The Last of Us, and Shadi Safdie kicking around. I mean, like the work that is put out for just that like game and TV show alone, there's an immense wealth to all this stuff, and it is just a constantly growing and massively exploding art form.
Speaking of The Last of Us, there's another artist, I believe her name is Alexandria Neonakis.
Okay.
And she has some of like my favorite work from like all of The Last of Us concepts. She draws horses like nobody ever. It's amazing.
Which, especially for the
check it
second
out.
game, there was a lot of that. And I remember there were pieces of like the expansive work of them riding up to the city before, like in the early parts of the story with Deanna.
Yeah.
And there was just like a lot of pieces that didn't make it to the final version of the game that I was like, these like vistas of the landscape are just mind blowing.
Yeah. I mean, I've played through that game now enough times to try to like collect my points and unlock all the concept art.
Exactly.
I still don't think I've gotten all of it, but
that was one of the cool things that I thought that they added was the wealth of the art books were like inside the actual game. It was like the amount of respect for that art form. It was nuts.
Yeah, art books are like one of my favorite things to collect whenever I can afford them.
Yeah.
And yeah, they're so nice to always have because it's a source of inspiration anytime you feel kind of stuck, right? You're hitting that wall and you just need either a little burst of serotonin or you need to reference some kind of color palette or compositions or really. But I always keep I keep the art of Into the Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Nice.
I love that one.
Rogue One.
Awesome.
And this guy named Simon Stollenhag.
Oh, okay.
He has a bunch of cool stuff. He had some of his art turned into an Amazon series.
Whoa, that's cool.
I think it's called, Tales from the Loop.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it's like he took this really cool idea of dystopian future and in like recent, like kind of like a near future, almost like an alternate timeline thing where you have these like mechs working in industrial or agricultural scenes or whatever.
So for those of us who are new to this, where does like concept art, what is its like purpose in a pre-production phase, or where does it fit? What's its role towards making something happen?
Yeah. I mean, I think from my understanding of it, and I think Brian touched on it earlier, it's helpful in like the development of the world building, the aesthetic of the whole production. Sometimes it's used in like really simple forms, like you're doing a single kind of character doing a certain task with like a thing, like I don't know, like a device that does something, right? Something super, super rudimentary. Or there are these massive paintings that are an example of what the surface of a planet looks like, and the buildings and the vehicles and the fauna and flora, just crazy.
Yeah.
But it does tend, I think, to change depending on the production's needs.
I think I've seen it a couple of different ways in the process. Like I've seen a director or someone who has come up with, say, an idea for a script, and they see it a very specific or intentional way. And it could be an animated film, it could be a live action, it could be any range of things, but they're trying to convey a specific vision for how it's going to be constructed in production, whatever that might be or look like. And it's just there's an intention that's trying to be conveyed. So whatever creator who can't draw this crazy vista or this very complex looking character will sit down with an artist who can, and it's almost like a police sketch artist type situation. They'll sit down and like describe what they want, and somebody who can actually have the hand to do it can articulate their vision for them is the dynamic that I've usually seen.
Yeah, it's also really helpful when you don't necessarily know what you're trying to convey,
Yeah.
right? I think that some of the beauty of concept art and how vast it can be is you bring in these artists from all of these different backgrounds and styles and give them essentially the same prompt, but get just myriad of different ideas.
Yeah.
And that's so cool because then you take the amalgamation and you've got your baby that's super unique and interesting. Just like, I mean, like Spider-Man, like Into the Spider-Verse, right, is a really awesome example of that.
Yeah.
In my opinion, it's like it changed animation from like that point on, right? Like before that, everybody was kind of going for this kind of like almost, I don't know, polished
Pixar type effect.
Pixar-esque, exactly.
And like watching it from like an animation standpoint, like both of those movies, like the first and second one, it's like any given scene, there's like anywhere from like 8 to 12 or 15 different techniques going on all simultaneously. It's like from an analytical standpoint, it'll like crack your brain in half.
Oh, it's absolutely nonsense and so beautiful, and I love it so much.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but that's a movie. Like if you look, I'm like flipping through the art book, and you've got how many different artists working on what Peter Parker looks like versus what Miles Morales looks like, and everybody in between. And like you've got, it's a priceless experience to be able to have all of these different takes on the same thing, the same subject matter, and then you can then evolve it into like this really unique design language, and then it kind of transcends like the entirety of animation in a way, right? Like without Spider-Verse, we wouldn't have the new Puss in Boots movie. We wouldn't have the new Ninja Turtles movie, both which I highly recommend. They're very fun.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Ninja Turtles. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think even I have to quote. Maybe don't quote me on this, but like Mitchell versus the Machine.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think of that one.
I think that came after Spider-Verse.
Yeah, I think so too.
2021, and then Spider-Verse came out. Yeah, Spider-Verse came out 2018, but that's it. Into the Spider-Verse came out 2018.
Yeah.
And then literally like everything changed after that. It gave studios an idea that like, look, you can do something that doesn't look so cookie cutter and generic, and it will be very successful and cool.
Well, watching Spider-Verse too, like it almost feels like each frame looks like a piece of concept art, like this highly like refined piece of artwork. Every frame looks like it could be up on the wall. It's just beautiful to look at. But I loved like what you said, like that there's all these different artists like taking a stab at what Peter Parker would look like. But in the framework of that particular story, there's room to have all those different visual interpretations articulated within that particular vast story, which is like the coolest thing ever. Like to have that many different visions have room to play.
Yeah, totally. And it's funny too. I mean, the concept art is kind of like a big umbrella, right? Underneath that, I guess you could like subdivide it as like character designs, environment designs, prop designs. You have your color scripting. Just like the sense of like what color is the world. Spider-Verse is like, I guess the newest one. The second one is Beyond the Spider-Verse.
Cross, I think it's Beyond is the one that's coming up. I think. Let me do. Actually,
that's right.
Not 100%
Cross.
sure.
Yeah, because the first one's.
No, I think you're correct.
Yeah, the first one's Into the Spider-Verse, right? And
but
then
like
Cross, and then
Yeah, that sounds right.
Beyond. And then after that, we're going to go circle back into, no.
No.
Circle back
around?
No, it's got to be your bull.
You know, you could get a good look at a butcher's ass.
You get a good look at
What a classic piece of comedy.
Not to distract, that was just making me think of it.
That was gold. I love it.
But I have a question. So what do you find, like when you're doing your artwork, do you find you tend to be more methodical in your approach, how you're going to draw it, and it takes a lot of time? Or is it more kind of like just really like intuition, like you're just going like right off the bat and just kind of wing it and see what happens?
Yeah, good question. I think I tend to do a lot of different things. Like I do some children's books, I do like motion graphics animation, I do storyboarding, I do character designs and some background design, all in the, I guess, the name of just like, I don't know, making cool stuff and trying to make a living. So I think my process tends to start the same and then adjust depending on like the limitations of the job, like if it's a time constraint thing. But most often I start off with some kind of like idea, like just a prompt, whether that's given to me with some more specific vision or broad. And then I kind of doodle some sketches just with like pencil, paper, or in Photoshop, and kind of simultaneously start looking up references. I think everybody should use references.
It's kind of like the visual research phase of it, right? Like, so you're like getting
exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's like, I don't know. I think there's like a good analogy of like, if your cup is empty, how are you gonna pour anything out of that cup?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That.
So yeah, just like I think absorbing and then taking time to think on those things and kind of like organically shape them into a new fully fleshed idea that also has your own kind of like personal expression and imprint on it based on your experience, based on your taste. It's like an important part of the process. So it's like usually, yeah, I'm just like doodling, finding interesting shapes, finding what I feel like seems like a nice balance of certain elements that I need to be showing in whatever the job is. I know it's like hard in like vagues, right? But like, but if it's like a subject, say just for the sake of it, it's like, oh, we need to show a girl with a balloon. She's on an alien planet. She's lost and being followed by Brian Fuller.
There's a scary thought.
Story checks out.
Yeah. Brian's hiding in a bush somewhere.
Just in there like spaghetti, just ready to pop out.
Yeah, or better, it's Brian and Han are in a gutter, a space gutter.
With clown makeup on.
With clown makeup on, and somebody's got a balloon, but we don't know who. And it's the job of the kid to find the balloon.
I like this.
Yeah. So then you take those elements, right? You're given that, and you're like, okay, cool. What does this look like?
What does that look
and
like?
Then
I actually
part
I
of the
see this
fun
now.
of, I think. Yeah. Right. maybe by the time that this airs, I'll have time to do a quick.
Oh, that'd be so great.
But yeah, it's fun. I think that's I think the beauty of concept art and exploration is that you're not tying yourself down to one kind of idea or aesthetic and could make this look like anything and everything, just whatever best suits the story ultimately.
Part of the beauty of that kind of collaboration, like you were saying, McQuarrie had a lot of interpretation. There were a lot of his ideas in those pieces that weren't extrapolated from, say, Lucas or any of the writers. You do have a bit of a voice in how things come out. And whenever you show this piece of visual work for the first time, someone's ever going to see this in a canvas, you have a little bit of say as to what exactly it's going to look like, even though it's being dictated to you largely.
Definitely. Well, it's also, I think, there's so many people behind the scenes, the unsung heroes of any project. So few, I think, people actually know Ralph McQuarrie's name, right?
Yeah.
Like you could say Ralph McQuarrie and certain Star Wars fans and art nerds go, hell yeah.
Yeah.
And most people who love Star Wars would be like, I have no idea.
I've never heard that name before. Who is that?
Right. And yet it's pretty arguable that he shaped the entire look of this series that we love so much.
Well, weirdly enough, when I did come down and help you guys out in Portland, whenever we shot the ad, that definitely was one of my all-time favorite collaborations. When I showed up at your guys' place in Oregon, I remember looking at just like nebbing through all your stuff, and I saw Justin's big double book set of the Ralph McQuarrie illustrations for Star Wars, and I was like, I've never heard of this book. I know Ralph McQuarrie, but I did not know there was like this comprehensive like Bible of his work, and I just immediately I politely begged to dig through this because I was like, I'm like a 4-year-old child. I need to look.
I totally, dude. I remember the day that arrived. It was like we were all huddled around the table, like kids on Christmas morning.
How could you not?
Popcorn in hand, just like flipping each page, going in like every other page was just another gasp.
Yeah.
This is so beautiful. Oh my God, it's so much fun. But yeah, I think concept artists are so important to the process and yet very rarely get the recognition in like the public eye.
Yeah.
That they definitely deserve.
Well, the example of Sid Mead, too, like we've talked a fair bit about Ralph McQuarrie. Sid Mead was around for a long time, got his feet in a lot of different stuff, but most notably, I mean, Blade Runner. Come on.
Totally.
He definitely had a big effect on how that movie evolved, because like it changed so crazy. So like we've touched a little bit on how crazy the writing process is for Blade Runner, but that's something I want to dig into at some point. But like he definitely had a big voice in what changed like the molding of that whole entire process, because the story like evolved from the book. Like the book is vastly different from what ended up being the final product, and part of the pivot point for how it all changed were his designs and like interpretations of that world, and like it got darker and grittier and more crazy interpretation of the future. So I mean, you absolutely can have an effect on how things go. It can completely alter what a story is from its source material if you have the right pivot points to change the course of how things are.
Yeah, it's a kind of a crazy amount of power, huh?
Yeah, it's a little like like mustache twirling dastardly if you can get it to that point.
If you're good at it, you could subliminally change the vision of an entire production, right?
And also if you have somebody as bad insane as Ridley Scott,
who's probably just like chomping at the bit for that. He's like, hell yeah, let's go.
I still can't, but like it's a complete sidetrack, but like I still can't believe for all the money in the world that they just like on a dime they're like, all right, 9-day shoot, we're gonna completely erase one of the lead characters in this movie. I was like, how do you just up and decide to do that? Like that's mind blowing to me.
I had no idea that's crazy.
It was tied to the Kevin Spacey thing. They shot the whole movie, and then the Kevin Spacey scandal came out, and they're like, all right, well, we're just going to recast him and shoot the entire movie. Like every shot that he's in, we're going to reshoot over a 9-day reshoot.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
I was like, how the hell did they pull that off?
They did, I guess, somehow.
Money.
Yeah. Ridley Scott insanity energy. But like I said, sidetrack, neither here nor there.
So truly.
Do you ever find yourself like when you're like doing your work, or like as you're learning to do new concept art or just any type of drawing, do you ever like find yourself encouraged or wanting to like try and draw something in some other artist's style by any chance, just to like practice your own?
Yeah, I think style, like pursuing a certain style is kind of a trap.
Okay.
Yeah, I can see
especially when you're just starting out, right? Like everybody wants to have their personal iconic style and look,
Mm-hmm.
but the trick is to just do it, and it kind of naturally comes to you, because like you're just like the product of the inspirations that you're absorbing, and those influences, all of those references, images, and all of that comes out in your own interpretation just naturally, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for the sake of like studying, absolutely, you find an artist that you like and you say, okay, I love how they draw or paint certain clothing, or how they tackle animals, or not physically strangling, but you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
No, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's very beneficial to study the masters.
Yeah.
And you break down how they approach different subjects, and study the hell out of it. You paint it the same way, you draw it the same way, and you just try to match it as close as possible. And hopefully through the process, if you're doing it slowly and correctly, I think you do learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then you add new tools to your toolbox. Like one specific thing that's really helpful is when we're painting anything, we in our minds tend to think like we need to add detail to like every little piece of the canvas.
Yeah.
But the truth is that you don't want to do that, and it's distracting, and it flattens your image, and it just like causes problems.
Mm-hmm.
Where if you look at all the greats, they have detail at the focal point. They have detail where they want you to look.
Yeah.
Everything else after that, you're just putting enough information on the canvas that your brain interprets it as like negative space, right?
Yeah.
Or just, oh, that's part of the building. You can suggest a lot with a little. Less is more, I guess, is the cliche.
That's one of the things, just doing it as simply as I've only like really just dipped a toe. I'm like, the amount of simplicity in some of this is the coolest thing, because it really is just an art of suggestion. It's like if your brain fills in the gaps more than you could ever like wrap your head around. It's crazy.
Which is encouraging, I think, because like for me, I'm not a good painter or like really draw, to be completely honest. Like my draftsmanship is fine, improving every day, definitely trying to get better.
And I think as critics of ourselves, we can always like tear ourselves down pretty far. But I mean, like you said before, it's about continuing to climb up that ladder and improve every day.
Yeah, I think you always have to be striving to be better, right? Otherwise, you get bored and stale, and then you don't like the thing that you do anymore.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's why there's the difficulty levels at any video game, right? Like nobody wants to be playing on easy mode forever.
Yeah,
you work your way up.
But the point is, as you progress and you spend years of your life getting better at this thing, and you start studying the masters even more closely, you notice how they utilize simplicity and suggestion rather than fully rendering out all of these detailed pieces, and how effective the emotion of a piece can be with such little detail.
Mm-hmm.
That's so encouraging.
Yeah.
Anybody who looks at art and says, oh my God, how am I ever going to be able to do that? It's like, well, you can definitely do that. It's just two values, right? You've got a light value and a dark value, and a simple shape. It's like basically a square with some notches chunked out of it. And then you have like a rock with a light source.
Yeah.
And that conveys so much already. And you're like, oh my God, I feel that. And then you play with certain principles and like design, like scale, and your composition comes into play. And you can convey so much emotion and tell a story so simply. And I don't know, for me, it encourages me every day to be like, yeah, sit down and do it. And then one day maybe you'll be like, sit me.
Going back to one of Han's points that he made, or a little bit earlier, you had mentioned, Han, about you want to go back and like try and emulate some of the greats and pick apart their toolbox. One of the things I think that's great and true of any art form is that that's really how you learn art, is like looking at like the brass tacks version of like the actual methods of what's physically possible, like what you can achieve in any form of artistry, like breaking it down to those small physical elements and then just cutting that with your own personality. I think that that's really what artistry is.
Yeah. You study the masters to like, and then kind of reverse engineer their works a little bit. See if you can take it apart.
Yeah. It's like you get the methodology of how to achieve it.
And then put it back together again. I've always kind of been envious of that, because that's one thing, at least that I got when I was trying to learn to write, still am trying to learn to write, is like, oh, never try to write or emulate like someone else. And I'm like, because you'll never discover your own voice then that way. And I don't know, more and more as I've gotten older now, I'm like, well, no, I feel like even if you just do it as an exercise for yourself, just to like sit down and say, okay, I want to try and just write a quick 1-page scene the way F. Scott Fitzgerald would have wrote it. Obviously, it's still going to come out like crap, but
I would counterpoint that to, I would say, like, there is some value in people who've said that. Like, don't get lost in trying to steal someone else's style. But I think that there's some value in breaking something down to its core elements and being like, all right, this is what makes the watch tick.
Yeah.
And like, how can I use these same parts to build something of my own?
I definitely agree with that. I think that the pursuit of a completely unique and personal voice is it's kind of like a trap, because you end up saying, oh, this has already been done by somebody else, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be emulating them too closely, because then I'm just lost in the void of all of these other artists. No matter what you do, it's going to be unique because it's like literally from you. It sounds kind of cheesy, but nobody has your experience exactly.
Yeah. But no, that is true. Yeah.
Anything you put into it is going to be somewhat unique. And studying the greats, breaking down how they approach subject matters, just like better equips you to tell the story that you want to tell.
It's also kind of pitfalls and perils, looking ahead to see like, all right, what difficulties did they run into and how can I make my path a little easier as well? Trying to do the same things.
For sure. But also make mistakes.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Like definitely pursue making.
I've brought that up in recent episodes. Han kind of made fun of me justifiably in the one episode. I was like, no, go out and have that life experience. Trip and fall, make the mistakes. Like that's really how we learn.
Rob a bank.
Truly. I can't remember where I heard it, but
don't rob a bank.
Said, fail as fast as you can.
Yeah.
I was like, that's so cool.
I can't remember where I heard it. Like I heard somebody again. I think in the weeks since we had talked about that. I can't remember who we were quoting at the time, but I heard it in a different quote saying that we don't learn from our success stories. Our success stories are just kind of wash over us. It's when you fail and you smack into that wall that you're going to figure out a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
So yeah, like I'm definitely not advocating for people to have bad life experiences, but more so say that That take the value in it that is there. When you do, there are good things that come out of bad scenarios, and take the good with the bad is, I guess, my point.
I'm back in your incredible PDF.
Yeah.
This 1 million page PDF.
This absurd document that would never
So
be
many
covered in
great
an hour.
artists and examples. No, it's very cool. But one of the artists that you cited is Jordan Grimer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I love his work, and I chat with him on Instagram all the time.
Oh, that's great. Dude, I love whenever you can like actually talk to the person. That's so cool.
Yeah, I've many a time reached out and been like, I love this piece or how you approach that, and thanks for this video. He has tons of cool free resources on YouTube for anybody who's like looking to get into painting or concept art. That's another thing, is like so many of these artists are very open and freely giving of their information, and sometimes their time if they can afford. That's hard, but you could do any of this stuff free if you could find it online. You just like on YouTube and watch one of Jordan's videos about painting a castle or painting a landscape.
Yeah.
And it does kind of demystify the experience, because you see it, he starts with this blank canvas and a black and white brush, right? A black brush, white canvas, and just starts plopping in shapes, smearing stuff around.
Mm-hmm.
And then 5 to 10 minutes later, you can see the outline of like a inorganic structure jutting up from the rocks of like an alien planet.
Well, too, I love watching like any artists who actually do like long form YouTube content, like where they show themselves forming a draft. It's like you can see the length and extensive nature of the process. Like, yes, it's you could make the dangerous comment of calling it simple, but it's just like the amount of time and energy that they put into it is just crazy.
Yeah, it's always very inspiring. Highly recommend anybody to do that.
It's cool to like dive through like the just wells of the internet and just like see what people like. There's this crazy wealth of experience and understanding for how to do all these things out there, and just the talent that people build over time is unreal.
Yeah, one thing I did notice about your 10 billion page PDF, most of the examples are kind of more like photorealistic.
Yeah.
And I think that's one thing is interesting about concept art, is that whether you're going for a style that's more like The Last of Us, right? Like a live action photorealistic world, kind of an interpretation of what we see on an everyday, but like in this post-apocalyptic hell.
Yeah.
Or you're doing something like you're trying to make a Pixar film,
mm-hmm.
or you're making Samurai Jack.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter what the style is. I think there's room for concept art, and almost certainly they're going through phases of exploring what those environments look like, what those characters look like. And yeah, I just like after this, I want to send you things to look at, because it's cool.
And I love that you brought up Samurai Jack, because I know we've discussed before like how much we both love Genndy Tartakovsky. But like his original Clone Wars show, and like just his style is just nuts.
So good.
Like I could just watch his work for like hours and hours. And didn't he did that Adam Sandler horror comedy like Pixar style one? What was the name of that? I can't remember. That's gonna drive me nuts.
The Hotel Transylvania?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
I couldn't find the
oh,
title.
yeah.
So like he's definitely like a practiced hand of like multiple styles too. Like he's not just glued to that, but it's like the dude has a lot of skills.
Yeah. I think it speaks volumes to him as an artist, and also the like just importance of understanding fundamentals.
Yeah.
Like a good composition is a good composition, whether it's Transylvania or I don't know, Star Wars.
Yeah, and like also in Samurai Jack, we have the beautiful voice stylings for Aku from Mako. He also didn't he do from Avatar?
Yeah,
he did.
He did Uncle Iroh.
General
He was the
Iroh.
original voice for Uncle Iroh.
Yeah, oof, just like the wealth of voices and too, and like also I don't know if Jordan, did you by chance see Boy with the Heron yet?
I did see Boy with the Heron.
We gotta get.
I watch
help me
everything and
convince
anything I
Han
can
to watch it. I'm gonna
Miyazaki.
force him to watch it, because I think I'm making the dangerous claim that it might be my favorite Miyazaki.
Oh yeah, I mean everyone's gotta have something, right? You gotta have one.
As I'm not gonna blow it, because even though Han doesn't care about spoilers, but there was one particular voice actor that I didn't know was in it, and then I was like, oh, like, yeah, just very cool stuff. I cannot get enough of animation and hand drawn artwork. Like just there is no comparison for how impactful and inspirational it can all be. It's just very, very cool.
Well, I think too, like one thing I always enjoyed about it is kind of limitless in the vision. If you want it to look a certain way, we can do it. You're not as constrained by the physical limitations of shooting something for real live action. It's sky's the limit. Your imagination is not constrained, or at least I think so.
No, I
absolutely.
Very much agree.
That's definitely what's drawn me to it, I think, at this point. What was it say? Oh, in a way, too, we were talking before about how a good concept piece informs maybe like the entire, big change to a story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Or I think the importance of having an animation specifically is like animation takes so long.
Yeah,
you really need to hammer out that story and have it like as perfect, as tight as it possibly can be.
Yeah.
Before you start going in and tweaking and making all of the actual pieces. And concept art and kind of like initially finding out the look that you're going for. Like you can't just like fix it in post.
Yeah.
So it's so important to explore the avenues that you're looking for and open to ideas early on in the process and collaborating with as many artists as you can so you can better find that look you're going for.
Yeah, it's just it kind of heightens every aspect of it, and I think that's why there have been so many like very, very inspirational stories out of animation, because you're getting that heightened pressure cooker kind of to a degree.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the level of detail, and I mean, this can be said of many different creative filmmakers, but animation, I think there's like a certain level of like insanity that goes into it. Like Gendy specifically, right?
Yeah.
Gendy Tartakovsky like eats, sleeps, and breathes his work.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you can tell every single frame of like Samurai Jack or Primal and his new series. Have you guys seen that?
I actually haven't. I don't even know if I've heard
I
of
haven't
yet.
seen it yet, but
holy hell yeah. You've got to see it.
New
So
stuff
it's,
to dig
I think
into.
there's 2 seasons now, and it is the story of a caveman and a dinosaur.
Ooh,
I'm in.
And
That's all you had to say.
it's f***ing sick.
hell yeah.
It's so sick.
Pulling
It's
up
one of
the
those,
page
it's again,
right
it's like
now.
there's no dialogue. It's just visual storytelling.
Dude,
and it's
this looks like
brutal.
Samurai Jack and Turok had a baby. This looks great.
It's exactly, yes. That's such a good comparison. Yes. It's so good, dude. It's so good.
Oh, this looks cool. All right.
Highly
I'm
recommend.
diving in. Like, this looks cool as hell.
Super fun. Definitely watch it.
What's it on?
Hell
What's it on again?
I believe it's on Max, HBO Max.
Okay.
Yeah. Adult Swim and Cartoon
Is it like
Network seem to be-
sacrilegious to call at Max HBO still?
Nah, who knows?
I still call it
Kind
that.
of like
Is that bad?
it's like calling X Twitter. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I
you
still
know?
call it that too. So
Yeah,
So it's kind of just like a middle finger. Hell yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
down with
yeah.
that.
exactly. I can support that energy for sure.
But yeah, HBO has Primal, and you should watch it.
all right.
Yeah, on the list for sure.
Yeah. The color palettes that they use, they're so beautiful. All the character designs are amazing. The environments are sick. And the story is like heart wrenching.
Yeah.
Like I wept, which is easy to do, but like I did, I wept.
Dude, it seriously does look great. I'm like, I have like the IMDb teaser running in the background.
There, if you are interested, if you go on YouTube, you can search Gendy Primal storyboard pitch, I think,
Okay.
something like that. But there is a video somewhere of him just basically pitching his storyboards for like one of the first episodes. And he draws all the storyboards himself, I believe. And he's doing the sound effects.
How killer it must be to have that kind of relationship with Cartoon Network. You can just like, how many shows has he had with them at this point?
God, I know he was like, he started on like Dexter's Lab
Yeah.
and like Powerpuff Girls.
The dude has one hell of a resume, that's for darn sure.
He's so cool. Yeah, I feel like artists are in general, but like visual artists too now have this horrible conundrum of needing to put their work out there,
Mm-hmm.
needing to promote themselves, having a online presence and a portfolio, but now also the fear of just having your work absolutely ripped to shreds and put into this AI machine,
Yeah.
spitting out a thing. It's like, how do you? I've seen there's one technique. I think it's called Nightshade.
I've heard of this.
And you you sprinkle your image with like invisible information or like some kind of metadata,
Yeah.
so that when an AI trains it kind of f***s it up. But
Huh.
it just sucks. Like, why is that? It's already hard enough being an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're gonna throw these insane curveballs at it now. Make it 10 times harder.
I never knew about that nightshade thing. That's interesting.
Yeah, I think Google it. I'm not an expert, but I also haven't done it yet myself because I don't feel like my work is like being stolen. I'm not at the level of like popularity and skill.
Well, also, like, I think it's one of those cases, I think it's a better safe than sorry type situation, because you may get to the point where you feel remorse that you didn't.
Sure.
So it might be a forward thinking type situation.
Yeah, I guess if I'm ever going to keep posting on Instagram, I'll have to figure that out.
Protect your buns, cover your butthole.
Text the buns.
Yeah.
Extra toasty.
Extra toasty indeed.
Don't.
I love it.
That's fair.
Just in general, like I love pre-production.
Oh yeah.
And like personally, like right now, I'm like working to try to be more like a storyboard artist.
Yeah.
Because I find it to be a nice balance of all of the things about filmmaking that I like, which is cinematography, the storytelling, and the acting. There's directing, there's editing. It's kind of like all of the things in one thing. And I get to just like, you draw quickly, and I love drawing quickly.
Yeah.
I don't want to like render out a full ass painting. I just want to like get to the nitty gritty, that moment where like the viewer's going to cry when they watch this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And like, so storyboarding is like something I'm like trying to do more of.
Uh-oh.
You were doing the like 365 day challenges too, like where you would do like a simple sketch every day, I remember, and you were getting pretty darn good at it.
Thanks. Yeah, I tried to do a year of posting every day, and I ended up just getting really depressed.
That's fair.
And I'm like, this isn't helpful. I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
So I stopped posting every day, which is nice.
I'm sure it takes the pressure off.
Yeah, it's also like, cause like it's like anything, right? You do what you love every day, but having to like put it out there and somehow like, I don't know, interact with the world. I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like, I'm learning, I'm getting better. I can like do that better when I'm like more introverted, right? Like behind my screen, I'm so happy. I'm doing my thing
in the Batcave.
Yeah,
in the Batcave, exactly. I don't need to be in Superman flying around Boy Scout mode.
Yeah,
I want to be in the shadow, doing away with the baddies.
Yeah, it's tough. You do anything too much, it can become a job and a chore, and that's not a good thing either.
Right.
But like this,
the irony though is that you have to do something all the time if you want to be good at it.
Exactly. The horrible conundrum of it.
Truly a double-edged sword, I know. Oh, the creator, the same director as Rogue One.
Creator was sick, especially how they shot it.
Dude, so sick. But that's another film that like highly benefited from the concept art.
Yeah.
Follow some of the concept artists on Instagram.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And but literally years before that movie came to be, they were drawing and painting robots in essentially Vietnam, or right?
Yeah.
Like, the things that like would inspire all these things, like you see it across these like artist portfolios for years. And I guess you could ask the question of like, would these stories be told without these inspirations?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
it's
true.
crazy. It's like, would it get lost in translation somewhere down the pipeline?
Yeah, exactly. It's cool. I loved the design of that movie. It was so cool.
Yeah, especially like the Tibet sequence. Like, I was kind of obsessed with the look of that sequence.
There's something cool about that that concept art kind of like lends itself to, and it's the melding of assumed like different things, right?
Yeah.
Like you have like Tibetan monks, and you have futuristic robots. In what world do they like live together except in like concept art, right?
Yeah.
Like, is that a shark with a freaking laser beam attached to its head? Those are like, it's so cool. You can explore those ideas because you like, that's literally the job is like, let's just throw things at the wall and see what it looks like.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Oof. Yeah. And
anyway,
I know we got through, like we got off the topic or anything, but like I do have a problem with coffee table books. Like Han can attest, I have like a whole shelf of them down here.
Uh-huh.
And I was rifling through the Death Stranding one. My God, that one too. So much cool stuff in that book.
Which one?
Death Stranding.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. I'll have to send you some snaps of certain pages because it's just like,
what? Yeah.
It's unreal.
That's so cool. I watched gameplay of that game. I didn't play it because I just like unfortunately don't have the time.
Yeah, no, I that was like my pre-COVID obsession. Like, I don't think I would be able to replay it purely on time, but
it's sick, yeah.
That game is just like, it's like every bit as immersive as like the new Zelda, both of the new Zelda games, and
also incredible.
it's just like they're the tones that Death Stranding hits. It's like a horror, but it's also kind of like an adventure landscape, but like also like this dystopian, horrible future, but also like an insanely beautiful world. On top, it's just so many layers to it. It's like an onion, man.
Right.
Yeah, like I guess what would you recommend for aspiring concept artists like yourself who are working their way through?
Yeah. As an aspiring concept artist myself, I would suggest everybody just keep drawing.
Yeah.
For one. Like, don't stop doing it. Always do it. Observe everything. Draw from life. That will inform, all of the work that you do. Like, whether you're designing like a character or have an alien character, or you're designing something that's very familiar. You need a point of reference for that. So observe the world around you, and don't be afraid to use references. Those are great.
Hell yeah.
And just do it all the time. I don't know. I mean, I feel like a fraud. Because I'm not like living the life that I want to just yet.
I mean, it comes with time, for sure.
But I know that feeling too. So
yeah, mad respect.
But I think that's also it's universal, right? Like, believe in yourself and be patient. Believe in yourself and work hard.
Yeah, you got to climb your way up and earn it, but don't kill yourself to do so either.
And watch Primal and
exactly
all the time.
Oh man, that's great. But yeah, I can't even begin to thank you for coming on and joining us for this. This was cool as hell.
Thank you guys for having me. It was a surprise and so much fun.
Since we started bringing on guests, I've been thinking of having you on. So I was like, I just need a good excuse to riff with Jordan.
I love that you want to riff with me for one, and also that like when you're thinking of the world of concept art or like just like art related to storytelling and filmmaking, that you think of me. I'm honored. I'm flattered.
You're fighting the good fight, and every time I look, you got something cool going on. So absolutely, my man.
Man, you're a freaking peach. But it's cool to be movie.
Yeah. No, I agree.
And it's really fun.
Especially in the day and age we're living in, it's just getting cooler and cooler.
You're right. It is, I think.
It is to me anyway.
Yeah.
I can only speak for myself.
I hear you.
I'm just walking like a lemming, leading a bunch of people off a cliff saying, yeah, we were cool as hell, and we're all dead.